Hello and welcome to Radio Somanaut. I'm your host, Whitney Dawn Pyles, and in each episode, I'll be interviewing inspiring and innovative individuals who are impacting the world through somatics, using the modality we call body-oriented coaching. Each one of my guests is a Somanaut. That means they're a graduate of the Somatic School, an online educator that trains coaches to be stewards of the body's wisdom. We'll be hearing their stories and getting particularly curious about how they're carrying this impactful work into their lives and communities. So in the spirit of the Somatic School, my invitation to you is to embrace ease, take a breath in, and allow their words to be a welcome exhale. Hello and welcome to Radio Somanaut. This is Whitney Dawn Pyles, and I am very tingly and excited today for this conversation. I am here with Nathan Blair, the founder of and visionary behind the Somatic School. So for Nathan, after leaving the corporate world to coach full-time, he immersed himself in somatic practice. Over the years, he learned from founding thinkers and practitioners in somatic psychology, interpersonal neurobiology, and body psychotherapy. The Somatic School was born out of the desire to create the coach training that he had longed for. And Nathan, just on a personal note, Nathan is a person that I believe is really bridging the worlds of coaching and somatics and finding new ways to impact and innovate. And I am infinitely inspired by that. Just an abundance of alliteration to start things off here. So Nathan, welcome to Radio Somanaut.
Wow, Whitney, thank you so much for the introduction, but thank you especially for having me here today. I'm so looking forward to the time together.
Yeah. Absolutely. Me too. Before we jump into it, though, I'd love to give you the opportunity that I give other guests on this show. And that is just the opportunity to slow down and just land in this moment. We've hit the record button. So just an invitation for you to maybe get a little bit more comfortable in your space, maybe allow your eyes to take in the space you're in, really noticing what might be nourishing, what might be inspiring to you in this moment. Whenever that feels complete for you, no rush for you, no rush for our listeners to come back. But when you're ready, I'd love to know, or just to hear you, as you've heard us so many times around this, but just a round of right now I'm feeling, right now I'm sensing.
Thank you, Whitney. Thanks for that opportunity there as well. I'm feeling soothed, because I feel like I'm sat here with you and I'm noticing that in the quality of the space, there's a soothing that I'm experiencing now, which is just so lovely. I'm sensing a slight tingly sensation in each of my calves. I'm hearing the wind outside, and there was something, the Simon and Garfunkel song, Sound of Silence. When you had me orienting there to the space right now, I was really aware of like the absence of sound between the sounds. There's sort of like a palpableness to the silence in the space right now, which feels very much adding to that soothing quality that you've dropped me into here with you on Radio Somanaut today, Whitney. So thanks.
Yeah, thank you for that. But right now I'm feeling, as I said when we started, still an excitement is with me. Coming into this, I felt a little bit of nervousness. Also, I think that soothing that you called attention to, that's also here for me. And so I'm definitely feeling that and sensing, as I often do once the record button has been hit, but just sensing a moistness in my palms, sensing that excitement and that nervousness and that, here we go. What are we going to uncover? So all of that is with me in this moment. I do want to start with the reason that we're here today. So this episode is meant to be, or my intention for it is to be a celebration of, I'm going to call it an award, even though we were a runner-up. I'm going to call it an award that we just received very recently, which was we were named a runner-up in the Distinguished Coaching Education Provider category at the Global ICF Coaching Impact Awards. And so I do want to begin there. And first of all, I would just love to know, how does that feel to have received this nod from the ICF?
Yeah, I mean, it is truly an honor, and I like that. There's only two runner-ups, I think, or one or two runner-ups in each category. And so I love that you said, I'm going to call it an award, because I think how we're experiencing it is very much that. I mentioned that Ericsson Coaching International were the winners of the Distinguished Coaching Education Provider category. And so huge congratulations to them and the good work that they've been doing for 45 plus years, and then to sit in, have, Lord only knows how many coaching education providers were nominated for this award, to kind of get to this point after 6 years, which sounds like a while, but also is not very long in the scheme of things, is really, I think, quite amazing. And we are our community, and we are our team, and so it's very much a team effort that's made it so. And I think for me, it marks a significant moment, because it was only a few years ago that there was an webinar about the release of the new ICF core competencies. And somebody was asked, at this webinar, the host, representative of the ICF, was asked, why don't you include somatics in the embodies a coaching mindset competency, or within the core competencies by the ICF? And they said something along the lines of, while anecdotally we understand that there are coaches that bring a somatic dimension to their work, it didn't appear enough in our data for it to feel significant to kind of incorporate into the overall competencies, bringing in the whole of a client, body. I would say body and mind. But as you know, here at the Somatic School, we like to think about the body and mind as a kind of unified whole. So to say body and mind is a little bit of well, that's one way to think about it, I guess. And another is the body mind, so one word. So having that was only a few years ago, and now to have a runner-up as a explicitly somatic coach training provider in the Distinguished Coaching Education Provider category feels like a win for us, but also a significant moment for coaching, the world of coaching, and the International Coaching Federation, which I'm very grateful for recognizing that. Alongside as well, Orchard International Coaching and Consulting, who in Malaysia, who had got the other runner-up place as well. So a huge congratulations to them as well. It's a great honor.
Yeah, and you said something in there that's really, I mean, it's really striking. When you mentioned Ericsson International, you said they've been around for 45 years, and compared to the Somatic School's 6 years, and that it does feel like a really big deal. I think that's why I personally even wanted to do this. I mean, just the idea that there's this recognition that's happened through the ICF for this coaching training that does feel very different from a lot of what else is out there, or maybe what we see within the worlds of coaching. And like you said, just a few years since even this question came about around embodiment. So yeah, it feels like a really big moment for the Somatic School, I imagine, for you. And I know it was a process to even apply, to be considered for this award. And so I'd love to just, yeah, hear a little bit more about how were you required to prove the impact that the Somatic School is having?
Yeah, well, I mentioned it was kind of a team effort, and it's interesting. There's many people involved who, of course, we requested to include them within this process, so they know about it. But they might not realize how much they contributed to it. And these people are not, members of our team, but members of our community. Because a big part of it was they wanted to see, alongside various materials from the course, to kind of demonstrate what we were up to. They also wanted to see kind of from participants and testimonial videos and that sort of thing. I mean, it's amazing to see kind of people talking with this kind of raw emotion and about their experience and the shifts and the impact. And I think that was I imagine that to be a huge part. And it feels relevant being here on Radio Somanaut to be talking about how much the Somanauts themselves have contributed to us getting that award. It's not just about us talking about like, hey, look at this modality and here's what we do and here's how it works. I can only imagine that hearing the impact from the very people we serve was probably one of the largest contributing factors to this. And that for me, I mean, it's Somanauts are our reason for existing. Everyone who comes through our training is why we do what we do. To help support people to kind of bring them their whole selves into the coaching process and support coaching whole clients towards life fully lived and having the body be a source of guidance in their lives, so yeah.
Yeah, there's something there. I really would love to invite you to imagine a little bit, hypothesize. Yeah, imagine a little bit around this question, but zooming out, right? A somatic coach training has received this, again, we're calling it an award, has received this award, this designation. Yeah, what does that mean? What do you imagine that means about where we're at as a society, as a collective? Like, what does that mean about where the coaching industry is going, that a somatic coach provider has received this designation?
Yeah, that is such a great question. Well, we're not the first coach trainer by any means to bring the body into their coaching. And so in the 50s, 60s, there was a slew of body psychotherapies as America kind of came into contact with a lot of Eastern thought. They're like traditions, practices, philosophies from the wisdom traditions of the East, like in particular Buddhism, but also including so like Zen Buddhism is almost especially Zen, but also including traditions and practices like yogic practices and from India and like Taoism as well from China. So there was this emergence of all of these as therapy and kind of Western therapeutic and clinical practice came into contact with these ideas and started experimenting essentially with like different ways to support clients, ways that included certain kind of characteristic practices like a emphasis on the present moment, the here and now, given like special attention to kind of subjective experience, often as experienced, through the body, through our senses, through our sensory perception, classes of sensory perception, and so you add lots of different therapies like Gestalt, Fritz Perls, and say Hakomi, like Ron Kurtz, and body work like Ida Rolf and Rolfing and Feldenkrais, Moshe Feldenkrais, and lots of different. They all kind of emerged. Coaching came a little bit later after all of this big slew of kind of body psychotherapies emerged, and coaching kind of emerged parallel, but kind of a little bit later on. and around that time, Richard Strozzi Heckler, who we owe a debt of gratitude to for kind of very much being a real OG, in the somatic coaching space, and kind of I would say very much the kind of forefather, you could say, and a trailblazer. So deep bow and a nod to Strozzi, and that was probably around the same time as Ericsson coaching have been around. So I think 40 years or so, something like that. Now, the thing that I'm fascinated by is that it feels that it's only been in the last, let's say, in particular in the last 4 years, I would say, in the last 4, the embodiment, the body, somatic psychology and somatic approaches to working with our clients is really begun to be embraced in the world of coaching. So, what happened in that gap? Why have those therapies like somatic approaches to say trauma therapy are now the kind of leading trauma therapies are all somatic therapies, somatic experiencing, organic intelligence, sensory motor psychotherapy. These have really kind of come into the mainstream. Everyone's very aware now of like this kind of different somatic approaches to nervous system regulation, etc. And now in the world of coaching, there's an embrace, people are starting to get interested in this. And I think that a big part of this has to do with the science. Modern Western science and research, and across the world, in fact, are starting to speak to ideas that the wisdom traditions of the East have been talking about for thousands of years. Those similar ideas that informed that kind of slew of body psychotherapies in the first place, and that also had an influence on the coaching approach, broadly speaking. But now that the science is starting to actually validate. Unfortunately, in the Western world, if we're very much focused on the kind of rational, logical mind, and we kind of got into this very post-industrial kind of way of working, a lot of kind of focus on productivity, results. So then goal-oriented coaching has dominated for a long time. That now these sciences are starting to reveal more about the human experience, and I guess there's kind of like it gives an evidence base for why would you bring the body into your coaching. So for me, even with the science there, it's amazing to see that if you talk to the average coach or you talk to the average person, and when I say average, I just mean talking day to day out in the street. If you talk to someone, how many people really understand somatic approaches, or really or really appreciate the benefits of building a relationship with the body, mind, the body, the felt sense, experiencing ourselves as a whole being, not as it's not mainstream yet, even then. So growing as an embrace, but it's not kind of common practice. So one of the things that I'm interested in, a long way of responding to your original question, but basically one of the things I think is happening here is that there's a sort of ripeness. It's almost like the ICF in this recognition are kind of almost demonstrating as well that the coaching industry is ready to sort of take seriously somatic approaches to coaching. Yeah.
Ripeness, like this ripeness, this readiness, there's a lot there for me. And one is just, I really loved when you acknowledged that these are ancient, right? And it's this validation, this evidence base that's having us in this moment where it feels like we're hearing and seeing more about these approaches. They're really coming to the forefront. And I'm really appreciating that, because it's speaking to something in me that was really seeking validation for a way of working that I was already sort of exploring as a practitioner, as a facilitator, and as a coach before I found the Somatic School. There was this way of working that was emerging naturally through the work that I was doing. And so for me, and in talking to others in my cohort, other Somanauts through this podcast, colleagues at the Somatic School, there is this thread of seeking community around what was naturally arising within us that the Somatic School really appeared to give us. The words like foundation, framework, just evidence, all of these come in when I think about the Somatic School and when I'm observing some of these common threads that really tie us together as a community, is that seeking of, why does this work? Is this real? Is this true? And so this theme of, living in a modern world and acknowledging the parts of us that are seeking that and needing that feels really important to me. And I feel that's what I've been gifted by the Somatic School. And part of that to me does come back to the connection with the ICF. That was something that I was seeking in a program, was really in an unregulated profession, something that felt really grounding and foundational to me, as this is a somatic coach, this is a body oriented coach training. I'm hearing the language that has been feeling so resonant for me as a human being, but I also know that there is foundation in this accreditation through the ICF. So, and I also wanted to say the long way to the answer is the way that we go on Radio Somanaut. So I've just done that too. But basically the question for me is, why for you in just finding these ways of working and immersing yourself in somatics, in body psychotherapy, and learning about these things, and in crafting the beginnings of what became this training, and as you began this process, why was it important to you to have this partnership, this accreditation through the ICF? That's the question.
Amazing. So, are you ready? I'm going to go another long way around for this one.
Yes, so ready, always.
Okay, here we go. So I want to build on a couple of things that you said to get to the response to this question, because like you said, you use the word ancient. And I love that because, I mentioned the wisdom traditions, the East earlier, but, well, actually, let me start this by saying, I think that, when some of the listeners might hear the word validation and think, do we need to seek validation? Surely there's something empowering about being able to proceed without the need for validation, But I think, it's interesting because many of our listeners probably also had the experience of feeling or believing something and it being sort of dismissed. Right? There's two examples of this, and then I'll come back to your original question. One might be that some people might hold beliefs that are beliefs about, look, even the words, the wisdom of the body can sort of ruffle some feathers for some people. They might think, what are you talking about? And it may be dismissed as what's often referred to as woo-woo, something like that. Mm-hmm. So, but what we know is that what we understand from the science and what we understand from practice as body-oriented coaches, because we see it all the time with clients and with ourselves, is that the body is wise beyond belief, and I guess it begs the question, what exactly is wisdom, as we're referring to here? But one example is that, that I like to say that there's non-verbal communication, there's verbal communication, and of the two, non-verbal communication tends to be the more honest. We all know what it's like to be talking to someone and they say one thing, but their body says something else, I think on the whole, whatever the body is communicating to us, if that's a furrowed brow, a shaking of the head, the tone of their voice, that there's something trustworthy in that over and above the words they're saying. Now, that's an interesting. So that's something there. So, there's even phenomenologically, if we just look at what we're seeing and experiencing, there's some validity to that, right? But all that to say that accreditation is an example of kind of bringing a legitimacy to it, I suppose, to this work, and I think, again, it's not about seeking validation in the eyes of another as much as it is to say, this is recognized, as impactful, important, powerful, relevant, and so there's something about recognition. One other thing I was going to say, so is it's just that you mentioned like it's ancient, and I spoke about the wisdom traditions of the East earlier, but this is as old as time, because a lot of people begin this work because they intuitively feel that they recognize this, especially during COVID, for example, when people have lots of time on their hands, and they also kind of pulled out of their usual routines, and they had a lot of time with themselves. A lot of times they're going to drop in and tune in and feel in and go, wow, my body's holding either a lot of stress, anxiety, or maybe something else. Maybe they started to slow down and realize, what I've been up to with my life actually doesn't feel very aligned, and I'm feeling that deeply. I'm sensing a lack of alignment. Something doesn't feel right. The body offers us this kind of felt sense of rightness, or to the contrary, when things aren't right for us, it lets us know. So people start to connect with the body in that way. And so intuitively kind of get a feeling of this, but, cultures, indigenous peoples across the globe, would probably look at the average modern Western and how they relate to the body and think, what's all the confusion about? What's going on here? So it's nothing new. And so again, what this comes back to then is, if it's nothing new and it's almost fundamental, it's actually what kind of these are ways of perceiving, or this kind of worldview, this idea that we are whole, that the body contains wisdom or an intelligence beyond the intellect. That's sort of been around for all of the humanity's evolution, across the entire existence of our species. And yet it's delegitimized or dismissed is woo-woo, or the felt sense as irrelevant information, in the way that a lot of people relate to their body is more of an inconvenience actually than a kind of intelligence of itself. Then I think the accreditation for us is kind of similar to what this course does for our Somanauts, which is to say, oh my God, it's like this exhale. Yes, finally. I remember growing up and, you're too sensitive, you're oversensitive. I would say things like to people and say, I'd sort of pick up on micro expressions and kind of get curious, and they say, no, everything's fine. You're overreacting, you're being oversensitive, you're almost like a denial of these things that people are picking up on from their own body, from what they perceive and what they attune to and track and others, sort of thing. So I think there's a great importance to sort of saying, this is, we meet this. I want to say that playfully, this is serious business, sort of thing. Yeah.
I'm just going to share a few of the things that came up for me. I mean, just this bit around sensitivity that I feel myself as a child was very similar in that way. But almost this conditioning we receive, it's almost like we're conditioned out of empathy. And this is so fully grounded in empathy and human connection. And that's really alive for me in how you've just responded. And there was something else really fun in there. Fun, playfully serious, maybe. I love that too. But there's something about that validation point and the accreditation and that grounding and the framework and that. And yeah, is it a necessity or not? Right. That's a question. But there, as you were talking about that, or kind of reflecting some of that back to me, I was reminded of how we really often, and this came up as we were having our preliminary call around this podcast, but this idea of being bridge people, being the bridge between Somanauts in general, the folks that work for the Somatic School, you yourself, me, myself, just really feeling like a bridge between one thing and the next, or to this next expression of how we're helping and healing together, whatever that is. And there's that came in, but to be a bridge, you have to meet people where they're at. And our generalization, many people who could receive so much from this way of working need that validation that this is a real way of receiving insight and moving towards fuller self-expression. You know, kind of the people that are receiving this work, clients, whether it be an individual or whether it be a company or whether it be a group of people, really honoring the parts of them that also want to know the way that you as a coach, as a practitioner, as a facilitator are working is really grounded. And so that's really alive with me, just this idea that to be a bridge, you have to meet people with where they're at, with what they need to cross.
Yeah, that's beautiful. You know, one of the things we say at the Somatic School is we are true to coaching. So we are true to coaching and true to somatics in equal measure. You know, quite often this kind of working somatically, it's almost like people kind of, it can be a bit fringy, and people almost like there's almost like a kind of doubling down on that. You kind of find your community; they are embodiment people, and they are somatic types, and that's what we do. That's what we do, and that's what we're into. The thing is, if anyone with a body is a somatic type, technically, if you have a body, you're right. So then the question is then, well, why doesn't everybody kind of take an interest in it? Why isn't everybody curious about somatic works or somatic approaches to coaching? So, you know, in many ways, the actual act of training as a body-oriented coach is in itself a bridge, because you're kind of bridging this perhaps historically more fringy methods into what is essentially a very established and respected approach in the helping professions, you know? So in doing so, you yourself are bridging that. You're bridging somatics, you're bridging coaching, you're bridging body, you're bridging and mind, you're bridging science and spirituality, perhaps. You're bridging East and West. You know, you as Somanauts are bridges by default. And we as a team are everyone's so bridgy, because there are people who worked in corporate organizations, you know, corporations before, I should say. There are people who, Merrill was a lawyer, for example, you know, and Sam worked in the public sector, you know, and you know, I worked in a consultancy for a period. And, you know, I think that there's this being able to navigate these worlds, you know, being able to kind of move within these worlds and feel quite at home, while simultaneously holding a worldview that says, and if in this, like, for example, radical idea, but if in this business meeting right now, we were just to pause for a moment and just sense what might emerge in that moment, potentially of silence, maybe, or not, but a moment just to connect and tune into that which might not already be known. You know, to be able to do that in that environment, wow, that's sort of radical. That's revolutionary. But does it have to be? Isn't that just us drawing on a more complete intelligence than simply our intellect, the rational thinking mind, logic and reason? So yeah, we're kind of all about bridging over here, right? And and that is why as well accreditation for us was important. That's why, you know, delighted and honored to be acknowledged by the ICF as well, because holding accreditation puts us in, and especially at the level that we hold it here at the Somatic School at level 2, is, you know, that PCC, professional certified coach, is the highest standard of coaching below master certified coach, and the master certified coach is only available once you've racked up thousands of hours of coaching. So that's a high standard of what is recognized as competent, high standard of coaching skill and adherence to ethical frameworks. So to do that, and for it to be fully somatic, because when it comes to body oriented coaching, it's not like a little sprinkling. No, we're really in that space. We're like nice and nestled in deeply there, So I think that's something there. That's a bridge in and of itself, and that was important for us to be true to, because we are very much doing coaching here. It's not called coaching, and it's actually something else. It's truly coaching that involves the whole person.
We definitely are in there. We are nestled. we are doing it. There's something in that too, and in kind of circling back to this subject as well. And this is personal experience. But there's a security. There's a security, I believe, or there's something about feeling secure in the way that you're working and what can back that up, that I think allows so much space for innovation and exploration. It is the security, to me, of the accreditation that allows me to get to places as a coach and with people, and to hold people in a way that I may not have been able to access had I not been resourced in that sense of security. So just calling attention to that. And I'd really love to share with you just some of the things that I've been noticing as I have been hosting this podcast, just some of these common threads that weave us together. I mean, we've called one out, this bridginess. But I'd love to just share with you maybe first one thing that I've noticed about what people are sharing around their experiences in the Somatic School, and just ask you the question, was it intentional? How does it feel to receive that? What does it spark in you to hear about it? So I'd love to go there, if that sounds all right with you.
But I am so ready. This is exciting.
So you kind of called out to this, and so this is why I think this wants my attention first. But you mentioned this finding your people, and there really is a sense of that. And so again, for myself, in having hosted the Introduction to Body Oriented Coaching for almost a year now, which is wild. So engaging with people that are considering coming into the school through doing this podcast, and talking to a lot of people in preparation, through recording episodes, through working with the Somatic School. Just, I feel like I'm nestled in the Somanaut community in a way that I certainly was with my own cohort, but in a bigger sense in this moment in my life. And what I have a sense of, and what I hear from people, and what I have experienced in my body, is it's felt like coming home.
Is that intentional? There's a lot to say about that. So I guess I'll be guided by your questions on that one there, and your curiosity about that. But there's a yes. Yes, very much so. And Sam and I once did a constellation, and in that there was something about the community, and so doing a constellation and sensing and responding, sensing into the emerging future, and also to what it is. What can we learn about the Somatic School that was not maybe immediately available in a conscious awareness right now? Beautiful benefits of a particular technique like structural constellations, or anything that helps us connect to the felt sense in that way. So what came through was just these words for our community, and the team as well. It's for the Somatic School, broadly speaking, as a container overall, which was 3 words: a happy home. Or 2.5 words. I don't know. a happy home. And it's so interesting because, doesn't mean that everyone's a family. Now, families can be dysfunctional. Okay, so we all know. Doesn't mean that everyone's a family as such, but it's almost like we sort of abide, and we are under the same roof. Yeah, and in this shared habitat, in this shared space that we inhabit for the period of time that we are in this space together. It's a happy home. It's a safe place. There's something about it that enables me to unwind, unfurl, be at ease, and importantly, be myself.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I can say more, but yeah.
I mean, all of those things, all of unravel, unfold. I mean, authenticity is kind of a buzzword now, but truly like showing up authentically, fully, wholly, all of the words that you just mentioned, I feel like have been said on this podcast at the very least. But there's something else, like a shared space under one roof. And something else that I've heard a lot and experienced is what it's providing is a shared language. Really a way of working, of talking about this work, of communicating, of being with one another, a shared language. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's an interesting one. That's I think that's one that kind of happened as a byproduct in a way of just simply, a body of work, and then the body of work that already draws on many other bodies of work. We're always standing on the shoulders of giants, and we draw on many amazing, established and respected modalities and schools of thought and great minds, great body minds that have informed this work. But yeah, I think I think it's one of those things where, like, just like in the focusing approach, the importance of finding language that fits. It's interesting. It's such a key aspect to that particular approach in which we're kind of reporting and articulating our experiences as felt from within, as we tend to and attend to the felt sense. And you can say something like, let's say if we're just naming the sort of felt experience of it, even before it's even like an emotion or anything like that. Maybe it's like, it's kind of sort of like it's sort of like a expanding. No, it's not quite that. It's more like it's pillowing, or it's like it's, and you're finding the language for that. And when you find the word that fits, that felt sense then almost it's almost as though, and this is kind of a little out there, but it's almost as though that something in you feels truly seen and understood and maybe heard. In my mind, it's almost like that's like a fractal in a sense. But sorry, I'm going to take us off on a complete tangent if I go there. So we can come back to that if you're interested in that. But yeah, finding language and focusing and the word that fits seems to facilitate and support the process to forward and to continue and to unfold and to deepen and all the good stuff. And in the same way, I think that finding language to express ourselves when we want to talk about this kind of work and somatic or body-oriented coaching is so important, especially language that doesn't alienate or that can be heard. When you said earlier that importance of meeting others where they're at, that can be spoken to somebody and that can be actually heard and understood and received. That's an ongoing, that's a work in progress for all of us. So much. We're all in this big project together of understanding, how do we speak this out to the world? How do we transmit effectively, so that what I believe about this to be, what I love about this, let's put it that way, what I love about this, you understand, you get it. Because sometimes it can be hard. But one of the things, and I guess this is what you're speaking to, is that, we're giving language that spans, sometimes it's language that quite elegantly or even poetically names some of these experiences. And then other times it's language that is drawn from the sciences that give it this sort of robustness and a sort of sense of efficacy. And both of those things help greatly, especially when speaking to skeptics. Not that you're trying necessarily to convince anyone, but that you might just want to connect around this, and that would include for our clients too, to be able to share on our websites, in the literature, in any articles we might write, etc., content we might put out online, and people can hear it and connect with it and understand it, importantly, and feel then drawn towards it if it's right for them, sort of thing. Yeah. Language, a good one.
Love always love the both andness, the poetic and the robustness of the scientific foundations of that. Really appreciating that. And then you naturally got to this next place that I was hoping to go, and just saying the word fractals and just dropping the word fractals in there, which then for me and mycelium, I'm going. But probably this last bit for us on this episode, but something that gets talked about a lot from my perspective on this podcast, in preparation for it, in my own inspiration around it, is the ripple effect of this work. As I've talked to people nearly every single time, we're not just talking on this podcast about what people are doing professionally as coaches or practitioners. We are talking about that, but it is so much deeper than that. This training influencing people and how they're working, but just how they're existing, how they are in the world, with their families, with their friends, with their loved ones, with strangers, with colleagues. And so it's just, you used the word pillowing earlier, and that's almost the image that I have of this ripple effect is just the light comes on, and what is the impact and the ripple effect that we as a school can't even track, because it's just in how people are engaging and carrying themselves in the world. That is something that I feel has been mentioned a lot. So yeah, just bringing that to you.
Yeah, well, that's really cool, because when we talk about if we were to ask ourselves, well, why coach training? There's so many ways to do somatic work, so many countless different directions you can take with that, from hands-on body work to more sort of space holding kind of group movement experiences, to more kind of like I don't know. There's so many different ways that you work, and then of course then you have coaching and therapy, and I think coaching seems to be one of the best ways to kind of reach. I don't want to say reach. How do I want to put this? To touch, let's say, the more lives. You're kind of touching the lives of more people in less time, because for each coach that gets trained in body-oriented approach, they have in their lifetime, how many clients do we imagine? Let's be prudent and say a coach who dabbles, a hobby coach, maybe has eight significant clients in their lifetime. Let's say the kind of the really sort of committed professional coach who really wants to make a living out of it, which of course accreditation supports professionally in that sense as well, opens lots of doors professionally in that sense. But that person, let's say, coaches, I don't know, 500, 600 clients. For each of those clients, how many individuals, human and more than human, people say sometimes, or other than human lives do they touch, that in how many living beings did they touch in their lifetime? And then and there's a kind of like that. This is not just a coaching skill set, but it's sort of fostering and cultivating a way of being with ourselves, with each other, and with the world around us. And I guess that's what you were kind of thinking about with the fractal piece there. Because if I can come into contact with my experience in a way that's patient, attentive, curious, and kind, if I can be sort of radically accepting, in the words of Anne Weiser Cornell, or I can be, as we say, all-inclusive, all-embracing, and be a kind of a yes and to whatever may emerge in my experience, and listen, genuine attentiveness, like listen with genuine curiosity, and listen with a humility that says, I might not know what's right here. Why don't you I would love to hear what you know about this whole situation, or I would love to learn more about how you think and feel right now. And this sounds strange, but I'm talking about, this is like a I thou, subject to subject kind of relating with our own bodies, our own bodily felt sense. If I can do that with my own experience, I'm much more equipped to do that with others in my life. That lovely thing in focusing, at the end of focusing sessions, sometimes you might say, you might see if it feels right to let it know you'll be back. So I always remember the first time I heard that, thinking, wow, that's what a respectful, honoring way of being with one's own experience. What if we did, and imagine what a respectful, honoring way to be with each other, to say, I have to go now, but I will be back to continue this conversation. I'm not, I'm going to be physically absent, but I'm leaving you with the promise of my presence, and that's really powerful. And to be able to do that for others, and then to then feel the connection that forms as a result of that. And so now the lines between you and me are more blurred, and in a healthy way. I mean, in the sense that we feel so deeply connected and attuned and in tune with one another that now the conversation, the dialogue flows effortlessly. What if you then expand that out then into the world, to my experience of being one in the world? There's something in you that wants our attention. There's another person there that benefits from the quality of our presence. And then there's a world in which we exist. And maybe we can also dialogue with the world around us in this similar way, that just has us feel like, we belong to the universe, kind of the thing, which for our species right now, I think we are in dire need of a sense of belonging to this universe, and welcome too. Welcome here,
Yeah.
But interdependent and in service of the whole as well. Which is also some lessons that we're learning about how to do that a bit better too, I think, right now.
Yeah. Belonging to the universe, feeling welcome here. Yeah, the ripple effects of just how you are with yourself and how that shifts the way you are with others, the way you are in the world. Yeah. The ripple effect is what completely fascinates me and delights me. So that is pretty much our episode, but I'd love to just know before I press stop, Nathan, what are you leaving here with?
It's meaty, but I'm trying to keep it simple.
Of course.
Yeah. Some time ago, in the time of René Descartes, there was a fissure, a split that occurred between body and mind matter, and brain and body, and when we live in a divided way, I think it leads to more division, actually, generally speaking. Don Allen Johnson said if we could truly experience and feel our bodies, then we wouldn't be able to hurt each other. And And so I think, so what I'm leaving with this is just this real sense that I have right now and have had for a while, that collectively as Somanauts, what we're really doing is undoing the Cartesian split, I call it, and just returning to wholeness. Because that was an idea that was introduced at some point in a moment in time. But, you know, we inherited it. It's time to reevaluate and kind of look at, you know, how do we want to be in relationship with ourselves and each other, sort of thing. You know, that's I think a new opportunity here. So we're all part of that movement. Yeah.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you. Thank you. Thank you for coming on Radio Somanaut and just being in process with me and exploring some of these curiosities and yeah, just speaking vulnerably and authentically. I appreciate you, Nathan. Thank you.
Well, thank you for having me, Whitney. It's been a pleasure.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. That's our episode, folks. We'll see you soon. Episode coming in 2 weeks. You can find out more about the Somatic School in the show notes. And my hope is, as always, is that there has been many things that you found nourishing and inspiring in this episode with Nathan Blair. Thanks for being here. That's our show, folks. I hope you found something nourishing, enjoyable, or inspiring in today's episode. Thank you for being here, and see you next time. In the meantime, you can follow us on Instagram at Radio Somanaut. You can also find out more about the Somatic School and our accredited diploma in body-oriented coaching at thesomaticschool.com, or follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, or YouTube. This is Whitney Dawn Pyles, encouraging you to stay present, stay curious, and stay connected.